Now that you know what it means to be a living thing, you know those characteristics of life, such as all living things are made of cells, and all living things reproduce, and all living things are homeostatic. You also realize that there are a whole bunch of things out there that meet all of those qualifications. There's lots of living things on Earth. So if you are to adequately be able to study and understand what those living things are, and let's face it, that's what biology is, it really helps if you have some sort of organizational system put in place to make that possible. We're going to talk about a way to organize living things, and it's going to be through what are called branching charts and classification keys. Now, we're not going to start off with living things. That's too complex. We're going to keep things a bit simple here at the beginning. We have here a picture or pictures of 5 shapes, and I've named them: Steve, Amanda, Tyler, Christine, and Kristen. Just like we have living things out there on Earth that we might name elephant or deer or rose, each of our shapes have a name. Each of our shapes also have specific characteristics. Maybe it's made of lines, maybe it's colored in, the shapes and lines are different, etc., etc. So we're going to first start off with these characteristics of our 5 shapes, and we are going to create what is called a branching chart. And that branching chart is what you see down here below. The idea of the branching chart is that you use the characteristics of each individual in the group to separate them into smaller groups. And when we do so, we're going to do so by separating them always into 2 groups. This branching chart is referred to as being dichotomous. Dichotomous means to always break down into 2 groups. So if we take the entirety of our large group here and we use some qualification about those individuals to break them into 2 groups, I start off with the phrases shaded and not shaded. I could have said colored in and not colored in. Same idea. But we were able to break this group of 5 into 2 separate groups based on that category. So this one and this one fit into the shaded category, and these 2 and this one over here fit into the not shaded category. We then want to continue along those same lines until each individual within our group is all by themselves. So for instance, if I take my shaded group and I drop a line down, I can then make another choice of breaking them into 2 smaller groups. Okay, we've got shaded and shaded, but how are they different? Well, one's a circle, one's a square. And once we've done that, Christine is all by herself. She is the only shaded circle. Steve is all by himself because he is the only shaded square. So at that point, we're done with that portion of the branching chart. But we have this not shaded category over here that still has 3 members to it, and we need to keep breaking those down into 2 groups until everybody is again by themselves. So if I take my not shaded group, I can drop a line down, and I can break them into individuals that have sides versus individuals that have no sides. So Amanda is the only one over here that doesn't have sides because, of course, Amanda's a circle. So Amanda is the only no sides, not shaded individual. That leaves me with this group here as the only ones left that have multiple members to it. And so I'm going to, again, drop a line down, put another line, and separate into, okay, it's not shaded and it has sides, but how many sides? 3 sides versus 4 sides. So Kristen is the only 4-sided, not shaded individual, whereas Tyler is the only 3-sided, not shaded individual. And so now everybody is completely by themselves. Notice also what I've done here with the numbering. I started with my top layer here, and my first horizontal line I've labeled with number 1. I then drop the next level down. Here's my next level. And then I work from left to right. There's my 2. There's my 3. And then I drop one more level down. Of course, I only have one line down here, but if there were more, I would start on the left and work my way to the right. And there is number 4. Okay? So that is the idea of creating a branching chart, a dichotomous one, by always separating into 2 groups until each individual within the group is by themselves. The idea is to then use the branching chart to create what is called a classification key. Here is the key that I have created from that chart. I start with question number 1. Question number 1 simply corresponds to the 1 on our branching chart. And notice what we have here, shaded, not shaded. So question number 1 is going to feature a yes or no question. You have to be able to answer your question with either a yes or a no. So if I just showed you an individual shape and I would say to you, is it shaded? You have to be able to answer a yes or no. Let us just pick this. Let's say that I gave you a triangle that's not colored in and I said, I want you to figure out the name of this. Imagine that that name is not written there and you don't know what it is. I just hand you a picture of the triangle. And you would say to yourself, okay, I'll use the classification key that is provided. Is it shaded? If yes, go to 2. Well, that triangle isn't shaded. So if no, go to 3. So you're going to skip the whole way down past question 2 to question 3. Does it have sides? Yes, it does. So if yes, go to 4. Question number 4, does it have 3 sides? Well, yes, it does. So if yes, it's Tyler. So to create a classification key, all you have to do is use your branching chart. Go to where you have a number 1 and write a yes or no question that differentiates this side from this side. For question number 2, just go to the number 2 on your chart and ask a yes or no question that differentiates this from this. Question number 3, here it is. Question number 4, there it is. And that way, eventually, when you're done, you can hand somebody your classification key and they could figure out the name of your particular shape. Or if you apply this to the way it's really supposed to be used, if you would see some animal or plant out in nature and you had a classification key that was based on its traits, you ought to be able to work your way through that classification key and you would be able to figure out the name of that organism.